Welcome to Sasquatch Theory. On this episode, we will be reading Bigfoot stories that have been shared with Miguel on the channel. If you have a Bigfoot eye sighting encounter you would like to share, please contact the channel to have your story shared with the people. Bigfoot encounters are rare, but many people have come across these elusive creatures and don't have anyone to talk about this with, and it will leave you feeling isolated. Don't allow non-believers to make you feel crazy or like you are alone. There are people out there who have seen these things, and they may be able to help you understand what you experienced. Miguel has had several Bigfoot encounters and a ton of experiences in the forest, and he will be able to validate your encounter.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another Sasquatch Theory video. On this episode, we will be reading some Bigfoot emails that were submitted into the channel. But before we start, I wanted to thank everyone who listens to the channel consistently, and for the good people that have reported their Bigfoot encounters and experiences to me. That really means a lot, and I wanted to thank everyone who made this possible right here. And it says, presented to Sasquatch Theory for passing 100,000 subscribers. So thank you guys very much. And yeah, I mean, I really do thank God for this, because I've mentioned it before on my channel that I prayed really hard for God to help me find something in life that I really enjoy doing. And not knowing that this would happen, I told my Bigfoot encounters on YouTube in order to seek other people who have had these experiences, because I knew that there were others out there just like me who have seen these things. And yeah, somehow the channel took off and it became something that I do. So yeah, I really do thank God, and none of it would be possible without him and the good people that he has connected me with. So I really appreciate everyone who's helped me along the way. And yeah, this is amazing. And I just wanted to show you guys, because you guys are a part of this journey. This isn't about me. This isn't about you. This is about Bigfoot. And a lot of people think that these creatures are from Genesis in the Bible, whenever the angels came down from a heavenly realm and mated with human women. They created a race of giants, and the giants possibly created other kinds of animals, and that is why God needed Noah to build the ark and get 2 of every animal to restore mankind and wildlife on this planet. But we don't really know, and it's good theory because science does not have an answer for us. So yeah, it's awesome, guys, and we'll keep the channel going. Nothing's going to stop this, because I believe whenever God opens up a door, no man can shut it. So yeah, let's get to the Bigfoot emails, and we'll see what people have submitted to the channel. All right, our first Bigfoot email is from Aaron in Michigan, and the title is I Shine. I'm not going to lie, I think this video just made me realize I think I've seen a Bigfoot before. Well, the eye shine. In this video, you mentioned seeing a group of them and having yellowish green eye shine. So here's my story. I live in Michigan. Myself, like this gentleman in the video, I'm from northern Michigan. It was late at night, and my brother and my sister-in-law and myself had just got home from a trip to the Upper Peninsula. We had chickens and horses at the time, so when we got home, we made our rounds with them, making sure they were fed and watered and the chickens were locked up safely and secure. We started with the chickens and were walking towards the coop. Next to the coop, we have a shed. Between the two were 2 yellowish green eyes. They were almost level with the edge of the roof of the shed. I stopped dead in my tracks with overwhelming fear and yelled out, "What the hell is that?" As it fluently moved from the shed to behind the coop where it disappeared, there was no bobbing, no noises of footsteps or anything. I never saw a silhouette or anything, just the eye shine. My brother and sister-in-law swore it was just one of the horses, so I calmed down and didn't think twice of it. And I never really paid any attention to it or put any thought into the color of the eye shine of the horses. Now, up until this video, I never put a second thought into this, because you saying that got me oddly curious about the eye shine color of the horses. I looked it up, and the horses have a blue eye shine. In fact, it's extremely rare for horses to have that color eye shine. I have extreme goosebumps now, but thank you. I'm not saying it was Bigfoot that I saw that night, but it honestly just makes sense to me. I grew up in the woods and have lived in the woods my entire life, and never once has eye shine scared me so bad as it did that night. And now I think I got a new light as to why. Maybe it's time for me to start my own research. Wow. So, yeah, you listened to the encounter story that I told where I was sitting in my house and I heard the sound of a fox. And it sounded like a chimpanzee being torn apart, is the best way I can explain it. At the time, I did think it was like a juvenile in distress. I wasn't sure what was happening. And I did end up seeing a few foxes go into the yard one after another from the woods through the yard and back into the woods. And the whole time, this vocalization's going off, and something's extremely distressed. And all of a sudden, this sound comes from the forest, and it just sounds like a big commotion, like shh. You can tell there's a big group of animals moving through the leaves. So I shine my spotlight in that direction, and I could see all these eyes bobbing up and down. They were a yellowish green color, and I thought it was a deer. I had the spotlight on it, and it has a handle kind of like a gun, but I'm shining the spotlight on it, and I'm kind of moving the spotlight back and forth, trying to see if I can get a silhouette or possibly see what it is. But the only thing that's lighting up is the eye shine, and they're just bobbing up and down, back and forth about, I don't know, I'd say about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. And I'm sitting there thinking that's got to be deer because it's only about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. What else could it be? Maybe the distress call called in a group of deer. And I've seen that before where like a fawn is in trouble and a group of deer comes to rescue the fawn. And as soon as I thought that, one of the sets of eyes rises like an elevator to about, I mean, I want to say 10 feet, but it was probably like 13 or 14 feet. That's why when people say Sasquatch don't get that big in the lower 48, I disagree. What I saw that night was a giant. And I couldn't believe it because I had seen Sasquatch prior to this, and they were probably anywhere from 6.5 to 8 feet tall, give or take. And they were pretty big, but not this big. So whenever I saw the eye shine go up to about 13 feet high, I thought to myself, oh my God, there's bigger ones out there. And I knew immediately what it was because I've had sightings prior to that incident, and I knew that they were still around. And I'd go through the woods in this area all the time looking for them, and I didn't really find too much. Maybe some odd structures, some gifts, some strange noises here and there. But when you go looking for these things, it makes you feel like they're nowhere around. They just disappeared, or they don't even exist in the first place. But they're around. A lot of times you may think that there's no sign of these things, so they can't possibly be around, but that's not true. And a good example of that is this past winter during the deer season, all season long throughout bow season and rifle season, I wasn't seeing any big bucks. I would check the trail cameras. There wasn't any mature deer on there. And whenever I'd walk around the woods, as I'd be hunting, I'd be looking for deer rubs on trees. They will scrape trees with their antlers and leave their scent behind for other deer to check out. But all the rubs were really small. I mean, you could tell that they were from like young bucks. I mean, there wasn't any mature bucks around, at least I thought. And towards the end of rifle season, I kind of gave up. I mean, I still hunted, but I wasn't going at it real hard because there wasn't much on the trail cameras. I wasn't seeing much whenever I was hunting. The sign that I seen in the area was very vague. There wasn't very much. A lot of small rubs, and there wasn't any big tracks. All the tracks that I would find were from young bucks and does. And I mean, there just wasn't that much activity. And there's also other family members that are hunting the area, and they wouldn't see very much either. So it was pretty discouraging. So right before the muzzleloader season, I said, you know what, screw it. I'm going to start hiking and walking around the property again because there's no deer around here. There's nothing going on. And I started walking around, and to my amazement, whenever I went down one of the trails, through a pine thicket. As soon as I left my yard, I walked down that trail. I see a little buck, and I'm like, oh man, that's a spiked deer. And then I start thinking, okay, I don't want to scare the deer off. They're here. So I turned back around and walked back to where I came from. Whenever I walked back up the trail, I saw something moving through the woods, and I could see horns, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's a giant mature buck. And I wasn't sure how big it was. And the strange thing is, let me rewind. The strange thing is, before this big buck encounter, something told me whenever I was at my house, grab your camera. And in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I might see a Sasquatch. I just had that feeling, like that gut feeling that told me, grab your camera. So I did have my camera. And I couldn't see the buck very well, so I zoomed in with my camcorder to try to get a better look. And yeah, it was a pretty big buck for this area. And I'll show you guys the encounter. So yeah, I couldn't believe that encounter. This was right before muzzleloader season. I don't have a muzzleloader, but best believe that I went to Walmart and bought myself a muzzleloader. I spent a lot of money on it because I wasn't new to it. So I had to buy the muzzleloader, I had to buy the shells, I had to buy all the accessories that came with it. So it was pretty expensive. And I went out every single day for hours and hours, and I did see a lot of deer. I saw a lot of does, a lot of young bucks. I mean, I saw some deer that I should have put in the freezer, but I was waiting for that mature buck. I never did see him, but my point is, a lot of times, just because you don't see the sign doesn't mean that they're not around. And yeah, every hunting season, I learn a really hard lesson. And that lesson is, don't ever give up. Never give up. And a lot of times in life, we give up hope because we don't receive what we want. But a lot of times that breakthrough is right around the corner, and there's a lot of discouragement along the way, and that's why we give up. But if you just keep pushing through, eventually something good will happen. But you have to get through a lot of bad, and a lot of times we feel like we're stagnant, not moving forward, and it's just human nature, okay? So don't ever give up. A lot of times you just have to try something different, and we get stuck in our comfort zone, and it's just human nature, guys. But yeah, anyways, moving on to our next Bigfoot email. All right, this next email is from Amber, and she's from Missouri. Hi, my name is Amber M, and I live just outside of West Plains, Missouri. We have been seeing something with red eyes in our woods watching us or staring at us when we are outside. I came across your video and wanted to ask you if you had any more information on what it could be. Any insight would be greatly appreciated. Have a nice day. Okay, so this is not the first time that I've heard of people seeing red eyes in southern Missouri, especially around West Plains. And yeah, it's something that people see all the time. I shouldn't say all the time, but it's something that's frequently reported to me and to other channels. But I've heard of the red eyes being seen around like Fredericktown, Farmington, Missouri, Kabul, Ava, and many other areas. But it seems to be a phenomenon that's happening in the Ozarks, and a lot of people that aren't from around here will say that's moose. They're just seeing moose. Moose are really tall and their eyes are red, but a lot of the times when people see these red eyes, they're self-illuminated. There's no light being casted onto the eyes causing them to shine, and it appears to be some type of bioluminescence, but to me it seems evil for sure. It seems like something from hell, and I've never seen a moose or moose sign here in Missouri, and I looked it up on the internet. Are there moose in Missouri? And apparently there are moose reports in northeast Missouri, which I never heard of that. A lot of people say there aren't wolves in Missouri, but there are wolves in Missouri. But as far as moose, I mean, I think you have a greater chance of running into a cryptid creature than seeing a moose. But yeah, I mean, if you're from Missouri and you've seen a wild moose, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. I mean, I would consider that a cryptid creature here in Missouri because, yeah, I've never seen it. I have heard of people seeing like elk and mule deer in Missouri, and this is prior to them reintroducing elk in Missouri. And yeah, my father being one of them. And I'll tell you about some of the stories that my dad told me whenever I was a kid. He claims that in this same area a long time ago, before there was any development, he was pretty much one of the only people living out here. And I was a little kid back then, but he claims he was deep in the woods going towards the Merrimack River, towards the Mark Twain forest, and he saw a group of white-tailed deer, and then he saw this massive mule deer, and he said he knew it was a mule deer because it had like this hop to it, like it would hop, and yeah, he said it didn't have a tail like a white-tailed deer, and he said without a doubt it was a mule deer. In that same area, I don't know if it was the same year or years after that encounter, he claims he saw a black cat. It was the size of a mountain lion, but it was jet black. And he always talks about that story. And he also claims in that same area he has seen an elk before. And my dad used to really hunt a lot. Like, he would really get into it. He was the type of person that would get up before the sun would come up, and he would stay all day long sitting really quietly and waiting for a deer to come by. And yeah, I mean, back then, I don't think he wasn't aware of like keeping the wind in your face, things like that. And he just went out there and hunted. But now that there's internet information out there, a lot of people know to keep the wind in your favor. But back then, my dad didn't know about that. And I'm sure there was a lot of hunters that did, but he was not from this country. He learned everything on his own. And I think there's a lot of things that we just kind of overlook that are right there in front of us. But yeah, I mean, there are strange things out there. And the red eyes, that's really creepy because, I mean, I get reports of people seeing the red eyes quite often. And in the comments, there's a lot of people that try to bash others who see the red eyes, and there's a lot of Bigfoot researchers that say that's not possible. They're not seeing red eyes, it's misidentification, it's something else. I mean, people will come up with any explanation that they can other than the cryptid creatures that people are seeing. And to me, it's kind of like the Bible. Let's say, for example, in Egypt, whenever the Israelites were slaves to the Egyptians, and God punished the Egyptians, and he caused natural events to happen to them, such as plagues, the water turning red, diseases, things like that, a lot of hardships. These are natural events, but God caused them. So now in the end times, it says that we're going to see famine, war, earthquakes, and signs in the stars, things like that, and many other things. But these things are happening right now, and people say, well, there's a scientific explanation to all of it. Of course there is. And if God created Earth, the universe, all of us, it's going to be natural events. And yeah, I mean, it's just human nature again, trying to explain science as an absolute answer. And yeah, I mean, science is just an explanation as to what is actually happening in reality. And yeah, I believe these things are evil, and there possibly could be some good ones. We hear that a lot, that there are good Sasquatch and there are bad ones, which I think that very well could be true. I believe just like with people, there's good people, there's bad people. Same with angels. There's good angels and there's bad angels. And that's just how it is, guys. So we have to have these experiences for ourselves to truly understand what's going on behind the scenes. And yeah, once you see one of these things, you'll never go back. And you'll believe all these crazy people that were saying, hey, I've seen a Bigfoot, or I've seen red eyes, or I've seen a dog man. It all sounds crazy until it happens to you. All right, let's move on to our next Bigfoot email. It is absolutely freezing out here, and I've went out several times hiking around. I do a lot of looking behind the scenes, and I try not to film everything because I'm just waiting for that right moment. I carry around the camera that my buddy Adam from the Half Inch Trench Crew gave me, and that's actually the same camera that I filmed that giant mature buck with. And I'm just kind of waiting to run into something unexpectedly and be able to film it. But yeah, a lot of people wonder when I'm going to get back out there and camp, and when am I going to start doing research again? I do, but a lot of times I don't find anything, and that's just how it is, guys. A lot of times the activity finds you. But yeah, it's been really cold out here. It's like 20 degrees out here. That's pretty cold for Missouri, and I know people from up north are like, man, that's warm. That's t-shirt weather for us, and it may be, but for us it's pretty cold. And it's a different type of cold here in Missouri because there's a lot of moisture in the air, and it gets really windy, and it's just, I don't know, it's different. So it could be like 40 degrees, but if it's super windy and damp out, it's just freezing outside. But yeah, let's move on to our next Bigfoot email. This story was submitted by David from Tennessee. My name is David. I'm from Southeast Tennessee, and I believe I have had a couple encounters after listening to your podcast for about a year now. The first was when I was stationed at Fort Benning, Georgia. I think that's how you say it, Benning. A friend and I decided to go hunting at Hannahatchee, WMA. A friend and I decided to go hunting at Hannahatchee, WMA. It's about an hour or so from Benning. My friend's granddad hunted there and told us we should go, so we did. We went in there pretty much blind since neither one of us had ever been there. We pulled into a pull-off spot, got our gear out, and headed in. It was about 5 in the morning. I like to be settled in well before the sun comes up. It was pitch black dark, and all we had were our cell phones for light. We were about 100 or 200 yards away from our vehicle, walking old logging roads. And as we were walking, we heard something walking up from our left, and it was following us. So we stopped, and I whispered to him about hearing it, and he said, "Yes, I hear it." So we continue walking, and it stays right with us, maybe 20 or 30 yards to our left. Every time we stopped, it stopped, and it definitely sounded bipedal. Now, all we had for light were our phones, so they maybe only shined about 10 feet in front of us. Whatever was following us continued past us about 30 or 40 yards, and it sounded like it was really big. It came across the logging road and back into the brush on the other side and walked what sounded like within 10 yards of us. Needless to say, we were frozen. We were basically blind, just listening to whatever this was walk towards us in the brush, which was thick blackberry briars. But it walked what sounded like 10 yards from us, stopped there for what seemed like 1 or 2 minutes, but was really probably like 10 or 20 seconds. And then it just turned around and walked off in the forest. We never heard any sounds besides the bipedal walking and leaves crunching. My buddy and I never really talked about it after that, and we have lost touch over the years. But knowing what I know now, I honestly think that it could have been a Sasquatch. I don't know if you'll actually see this or not, but I would love to know if anyone else has had an encounter or something similar happen there. I don't know. Has anyone ever had this type of experience in Georgia? Also, all of this took place in 2014 or 2015. I can't remember the year exactly, but it was definitely in my mind. November, if that matters. My next weird experience was this past deer season in the Cherokee National Forest. I live maybe 20 minutes from there. It was also mid-November during the rut. I have a picture I took that day so I can give you the exact date and time I was there. I was sitting in a clear cut, watching a good beat down trail on the other hillside, maybe 100 yards away from me. I had been sitting there for about 3 hours. I got in at like 12 p.m. and was going to sit there till dark. At around 2 or 3, I heard what I thought was a bird calling, but I had never heard that before around here, and I grew up here, so I'm pretty familiar with the animals here. Whatever it was, it whistled multiple times. It's kind of hard for me to describe the whistling sound because it was literally a sound I had never heard before. As the sun started to go down, I got a very uneasy feeling, like I needed to leave, so I did. I never saw or heard anything else but that whistling sound. I searched through my scope trying to find the bird, but I never saw anything other than woodpeckers and small songbirds. But this whistling was not from any songbird I've heard. My last encounter, I was hunting near my house. I was sitting near the top of a ridge, but not enough to be skylighted. I like to really tuck in and hide very well since I mostly hunt from the ground. So I was sitting there, and on the ridge over from me, maybe about 75 yards, I saw what I thought was, no crap, was someone riding a bike through the woods. Because they seemed high up, like they were on something, but it was moving fast as hell, like it was on a bike. Only this was 20 acres of private property and absolutely zero bike trails. We actively guard this place from trespassers. All my neighbors know not to go on my property without risking some type of repercussions. We don't take kindly to trespassing, especially where I'm hunting at. What I seen though was solid black and kind of shiny looking. I could see what I thought was from the waist up, but it moved so fast like it was riding something. I don't know what I seen. I didn't hear any sounds like you think you would with someone tearing through the woods with a bike. I would really appreciate your opinion on these to kind of help settle my mind. I'm very open to the idea of Sasquatch being real, but I'm just not sure exactly what happened to me and the things I heard and seen. I also took my son squirrel hunting here the other day, and we had some bad storms come through, and I found a possible X structure, which would definitely which I would definitely love to hear what you think, because it's like 70 yards from my house, which is concerning. It doesn't seem likely to me, with even the storms we've had, for two sticks to break and fall like this. I will send some pictures of it, but that's what happened to me. I'm not 100% sure if it's Sasquatch activity or what, but I would really love to hear your opinion. Thanks for reading this if you got to see it, and thanks for giving people a safe place to tell their story. Thank you very much, David, for sharing your experiences with me, and that really means a lot. Um, yeah, I think what was trailing you guys was possibly a Sasquatch. And I'll tell you why. I was hunting in an area called Woodson K Woods near Merrimack Springs here in Missouri, and I tore down my stand right when it got dark, and I packed up all my gear. And whenever I was leaving, I was walking the chalk road back to the parking lot. I was probably about a mile and a half away from the parking lot, and once I got out of the food plot on the chalk road, I was walking. I heard this sound quickly approaching me, and I thought, what the heck is that? And as soon as I turned around, two people on e-bikes fly past me, and as soon as I heard it and saw them, boom, they were gone. I mean, they were moving, and everything got quiet. And prior to that happening, I heard something walking to my right, and it was paralleling me, and whenever I was walking, it would walk. I would stop, it would stop. It sounded like a giant buck or like a big male mountain lion just stalking me, walking alongside me. I mean, it was probably 10 or 20 yards to my right. And I was hearing this before the e-bikers passed by me. So once they passed by, everything got dead silent again, and I could hear this thing in the woods. So I started walking, and this thing's still moving with me. I stop, it stops. So I'm walking as fast as I can, but I got my backpack with my stand attached to the backpack, and I have my bow in my hand, and I'm panicking. Honestly, I'm like, do I drop my bow? Do I drop all my gear? No, don't do that, Miguel. You got about $3,000 worth of gear. If you drop this, you'll never find it again. And I mean, even if you come back tomorrow, you're gonna have to drive miles to get back out there, miles to walk through the forest, and by that point, somebody would have already found your gear. That's what's going through my mind. And I stop and I think, okay, I got my night vision camera in there. But then I think to myself, okay, my stand is strapped over my backpack. In order for me to get that camera out, I'll have to unbuckle everything, look for that camera, and pull it out. And I don't want to do that because this thing's trailing me. And if I unbuckle everything, I'm going to have gear all over the place. So I just booked it as fast as I could walk back to the vehicle. And this thing followed me for a pretty good ways. And I think that was Sasquatch, because right there across the river on the backside of this conservation area, I had seen a Sasquatch. And at the time, I thought it was a black bear that scurried on all fours, got up behind an oak tree, and slowly hid behind it. But I didn't know what it was. Whenever I encountered that, I was just thinking, man, that's a really smart black bear to get up and hide behind a tree like that. And whenever it hid behind the tree, it never stepped out. So I just was left confused and thinking, dang, that was an intelligent black bear. But yeah. But yeah, to me, that sounds like Sasquatch. I mean, you mentioned the blackberry bushes, and you're in Georgia. Georgia is a hot spot for Bigfoot activity. And yeah, I'm sorry if I butchered the name of the area. But yeah, your next experience was in the Cherokee National Forest. You mentioned hearing these whistling sounds, and I think it was like 3 weeks or so before I had my Bigfoot eye-sighted encounters here in this area. I heard these loud whistles, and they triangulated around me, and they're very sharp whistles. I mean, it's hard to mimic them, but like real loud whistles. And I didn't know what it was at the time. I went back about an hour later, and when I went back to that exact spot to investigate the area, because I thought people were trespassing and following me, I saw these two orange orbs floating through the woods about 3 or 4 feet off the ground. And I was staring, and I thought, man, is that someone carrying like lanterns or cell phones walking through the woods? But I thought about approaching them, but I got this really strange feeling in my gut, like, do not follow those orbs. But yeah, I think the whistling sound that you were hearing was probably Sasquatch. And it's really hard to say without being there, but it does sound like you're being followed. The black creature that you saw that was shiny looking, that does sound like a squatch as well. I mean, they are very jet black and they have this shine to their fur. And of course, they come in all different shapes, colors, and sizes. And I think the most typical color is black and brown. But from what I've seen here in Missouri, a majority of them are jet black, but they'll have variations in the hair as far as like having white or gray in there, or they'll be like an auburn color, like a pine brown color. And there's also gray ones and white ones. So you have to keep that in mind that they don't all look the same. And they're kind of like people. There's many different variations, and there's researchers that say there's different types of Sasquatch. So you have to keep that in mind. But it does sound like whatever was in the woods that day possibly could have been a Sasquatch. And like you said, it's private property, so no one else should have been there. All right, this next Bigfoot email is from Jackie, and the title is 40 Years Ago. This isn't a good enough story to publish, but it will add to your knowledge. In 1984, my husband and I were living in Westmoreland, Tennessee. A friend from Atlanta moved about 5 miles away in what he called the mountains. We visited him regularly in his small camper on his brother's land surrounded by thick woods. This visit was late afternoon. His camper was about a mile down a dirt driveway. It had been raining, so we had to park and walk in the muddy, rutty drive. We stayed till about 10 p.m. expecting him to drive us out in his truck, but it was not working, so we took off on foot. The conversation had been filled with talk of animal mutilation, so I was nervous. On the right of us was a cornfield, on the left was deep, thick woods, thick right up to the dirt driveway. We'd been gone about 5 minutes when I became aware of a noise to my left. It was crashing and the snapping of limbs. I looked and saw nothing, but it continued, and I looked again and saw a large dark shape moving through the dense undergrowth and trees, pacing us. And I said to my husband, "Something is over there." He said, "I know, keep walking." We walked and then ran to the car and made it inside, locking our doors. We felt relieved. Looking back, we're certain it was a Bigfoot. There is no other explanation of its speed and height. Back then, no one was talking about them, so we kept it to ourselves. If it had happened now, we would have returned looking for evidence. We love your show. Thank you for all you do. Yeah, that is terrifying. And again, it seems like whenever the sun goes down, these things come out and they will pace people. And this goes back to a lot of times you'll come out here during the daytime and it seems like nothing's around. There's nothing out here. Everything's good. But once the sun goes down, these things come out. And that's what blows my mind is like, where did they come from? Where were they? Because I'd been exploring the woods all day long. We were making a racket out there. And then once the sun goes down, it's just like, there it is. It's following you. And these things are really sneaky. So it really makes you wonder, like, where the heck did they come from? And this goes back to that spotlighting incident that I had that night where I shined those creatures in the woods and I could see the eyes shine bobbing up and down, and one of the eyes went up to about 13 feet, give or take, that day. And there's more to the story in case you guys have never heard it before. But anyways, that day I was out in the woods all day long, walking all over the place, up and down the forest, just exploring. And I didn't see anything. I didn't hear anything. Nothing was out of place. And that night, all hell broke loose. That's what scared me the most, was I was out there all day long walking the woods, and these things were out there too, and I had no idea where did they come from. But yeah, after that eye shine incident, all the eyes are bobbing up and down as I'm hitting them with the spotlight. I can't see their bodies because the spotlight's only penetrating the outside of the woods. It's not penetrating into the woods, so I can't tell what it is. All I see are these yellowish green eyes. And whenever the eyes went up to about 13 feet, that's when I heard ch, 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 from this direction. I see these creatures over here. From over here in this direction, I hear bipedal footsteps. It sounds like a lumberjack walking. It's getting closer and closer and closer. Sounds like a big lumberjack just walking, getting closer and closer. It's almost like that sharks that shark song, like dun 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 dun. Like I had that feeling like something big was coming, and I take the spotlight and I shine it over this way. And there's a gap in the woods because it's pretty thick woods. There's like cedar trees and oak trees, and there's this one spot where there's this gap. So I shine the spotlight right there because it's coming. And I'm thinking to myself, whatever this is, whenever it walks through that gap, I'm going to be able to see it. And that Sasquatch walked right through that gap. And I mean, it was a whitish gray Sasquatch. He just walked and joined up with the rest of the group that night, but I had the spotlight right on him, and he never looked over at me. He just continued walking. And I mean, this thing was probably about anywhere from 6 to 8 feet tall, a whitish gray color, had no neck, a round head, black eyes like a bull or a shark, and yeah, he paid no attention to me. He was focused on that group of Sasquatch. Whenever I saw him, I said, holy crap. I shut the window and I said to myself, I am not going out there tonight. They're out there. Oh my God. And yeah, I was struck with fear because I knew they were out there and there's no way I was going to go out there. It was late at night. I was scared to death. And I had already seen them in the daytime. And for some reason, like when you see a Sasquatch during the day, it's like, wow, there's a Sasquatch. And of course, you're not going to go chasing after it, but there's a feeling of security because it's daytime. But whenever it's nighttime and you know they're out there, it will terrify you. I don't care who you are. There's a lot of researchers that want to see these things that go camping out at night. I'm telling you, if they come out at nighttime, you will be terrified. And if you're a researcher that claims you've seen one, maybe you saw something like on your thermal device that you can't be sure of and you call it a Sasquatch, when they really do come out and you know 100% that it's them, it's going to terrify you and you're going to be scared to death. But yeah, 2 weeks after that incident with the spotlight, they came back in the same spot. They're walking around the woods at the edge of the yard in the woods. Like, I don't know, it's pretty much like right at the edge of the woods, like 20 or 30 yards in the woods, right outside the yard. But anyways, they just be walking around. It was really unusual. Like, what the hell are they doing here? Why have they shown back up? I think it's because I snuck up on one of the juveniles and they were letting me know who's boss and they were intimidating me. I'm not really sure, but that's the feeling I got. And it seemed like every 2 weeks they did that, about 3 or 4 times after that. And I ended up buying this cheap night vision, and I think it's like one of those $200 ones you can buy off of Amazon. It kind of has like a little TV screen in it, and it looks like a pair of binoculars. I bought one of those, and the last time they came up, I was like, I'm going to grab that night vision, I'm going to record them. And whenever I went out there and tried to record them, I turned it on, that screen turned on, it's like really bright. And on the outside, it has these 2 IR lights, and I mean, they are red. It looks like 2 red eyes. But I turned it on, and I faced it towards the direction of where the sounds were coming from. And whenever I'd face it towards the Sasquatch, it would just get up and walk off. I couldn't see them doing it because they were in the woods, and it was dark, and I just hear them walking into the deep woods. And they didn't run, they just casually walked off. So then I shined it to where I thought the other ones were. They'd get up and just walk off from the woods. And I repeated that. And one after another, it just spooked them. I mean, they didn't like the red eye shine. I don't know if it was because it was like 2 red lights or because it was infrared. But after that incident, they never came back. So when I hear people say that IR scares them off, I think that's true. But at the same time, whenever I seen that little jet black juvenile, There was literally one of my trail cameras like 40 yards away from him. He didn't walk in front of it, but he was just hanging out right by a trail camera. So does it scare them off? Maybe, but at the same time, are they smart enough just to move around it? I think so. I think it was the fact that it was a human holding an IR device. And I think they're used to seeing trail cameras out in the woods, and they're just smart enough to go around it. Like, they don't have to walk in front of it. And I don't know, I think like whenever deer walk in front of our trail cameras, it sends out that beam, and they can see that. So they just know, okay, I'm not going to walk in front of that. So you often hear people say there's like thousands of trail cameras out there. I've never seen a Bigfoot. They don't exist. It's not real. I mean, if you think that a $40 Walmart camera is more intelligent than a Sasquatch, then by all means believe it, but these things are out there. And I walk the woods all the time. Rarely do I see trail cameras. So people that say there's trail cameras everywhere, there are not trail cameras everywhere. That is not true. And here in Missouri, you're not allowed to put up trail cameras on public land. Not in national forests, wilderness areas, state parks. You're not allowed to have trail cameras. Now, does conservation have trail cameras? Yeah, I'm sure they put them up, but they're not everywhere. And rarely do I ever see trail cameras anymore. A lot of that's done on private land, and even still, like even if you had like 40 cameras, you're not covering every single spot. You literally have to walk right in front of that camera in order to get a solid shot. But anyways, yeah, I appreciate everyone for tuning in today. For the people that have submitted their stories to the channel, that really means a lot to me. So if you have a Bigfoot experience that you want to share with me, please email me at sasquatchtheory@outlook.com. And you don't have to have an eyesight encounter. I hear people say that a lot. Like, I never seen one. I had an experience, so my story's not worthy. It's not true. If you had an experience, submit it into the channel, and I will read it off one day, because your story does matter, and it's a giant puzzle piece, and we're just putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Okay, so just because you've never seen one doesn't mean your story doesn't matter. And a lot of times people share their experiences in the comments, and they're very well written, and I wish that they would have submitted them to the email. All right, so yeah, I appreciate everyone. My voice is going out. I've been pretty sick lately, but yeah, thank you guys so much for all the support, and you guys take care. Okay.